got your abacus?
Yes.
You got your stylus?
Yes.
You got your writing tablets?
Yes.
You got your money for the teacher?
Yes.
You got your lunch?
Yes.
Right, off you go.
It's not fair. Why do I have to go to school and not Cleo?
Because she's a girl, silly. Girls don't go to school. Come on now, you've wasted enough time. Callias, take him off. And make sure he doesn't dawdle in the marketplace. Why is it that some children just never get to school in time?
Right, settle down, boys. Settle down. Nikeus, get your abacus out.
Philon, I want to hear you recite that speech today. And Carmides, I'm hoping for great things on the lyre from you today.
Morning, sir. Here's the money for the week.
Thank you, Lucian. And now you'd better start off by writing 2 tablets on why you're always late for school.
Yes, sir.
A school classroom in ancient Athens. Some of it will seem very familiar because teachers and children haven't changed very much in 2,000 odd years. But in some ways, Greek schools were very different. For a start, they were for boys only. If girls learnt to read and write, they did it at home. And another thing, schools weren't free. Parents had to pay to get their children educated.
24 ovals and 5, 29, and 7, 36. That all seems satisfactory.
What are we going to do today, sir?
What do we normally do? We work, we study. That's what your parents pay me for.
And what did they study at school? Well, as you might expect, some of the main subjects were reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Right, Nikeus. You were up at the Parthenon yesterday.
Yes, sir.
Well, I want you to work out for me how many blocks of marble there are in each column. Now, there are 46 columns and, let's say, 11 blocks of marble per column.
46 columns and 11 blocks?
That's right. How many blocks altogether? Off you go.
To help them with their arithmetic, the Greeks used something called an abacus. The beads in the end row stand for the units. The beads in the next row stand for the tens. In the next row for hundreds, and so on. And if you notice, the abacus is divided down the middle, and all the beads on this side of the line are worth 5 times as much as the beads on this side. So if I move these 2 here, now they're worth 1 each, so that's 2. This one here is worth 5, so that's 7. Now for some tens. Have 3 tens, so that would be 37. I'll add 50 to that. 87. Now for some hundreds. 300. 387. And add 500 to that. So that's 887. Not that difficult, really. And with a bit of practice, people could learn to use the abacus very quickly and efficiently. Mind you, I'm not sure that poor old Nikeus is too hot at it.
Right, Nikeus. What's the answer?
453, sir?
No, not 453. Try again, my boy. Now, Philon, let me hear that speech. You've read it and learned it? Yes? Stand up. Right, what is it? Oh, yes, Ajax's farewell. Right, off you go, my boy.
O sun, farewell forever, and farewell to you, dear island, Salamis, my home. Never again will I see
Mighty Athens' walls.
will I see mighty Athens' walls, nor will I look again,
On Trojan.
nor will I look again on
Trojan soil. Oh, dear, Philon, oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear. Now, look, I'm going to start the water clock, and I want you to have learnt it perfectly by the time the water's through.
Here's something else you won't be familiar with. The Greeks used sundials to measure long periods of time. But they didn't have watches or clocks. So if they wanted to measure a short period of time, like 5 minutes, they used a water clock. Now they filled the top jar with water and then pulled out the stopper, and the water drained out into the bottom one. And it always took exactly the same amount of time for it to empty itself. It's a bit like an egg timer, really, but it's using water instead of sand.
$482, sir?
No, not 482. Now, Lucian, let's have a look at you. All nice and neat. Yes, that's not bad at all. What about spelling mistakes? You spelled agra wrong again. 1 R. That's better.
Did you notice what Lucian is writing with? He's got a tablet with a wax surface, and he's using something called a stylus to scratch the surface with. Paper in those days was very expensive, much too precious to waste on children. But a wax tablet could be used again and again and again. You simply smoothed over the surface with the other end of your stylus and started afresh. And the letters are rather unusual, aren't they? If you look at the Greek alphabet, about half the letters are familiar to us. Those are the ones that we borrowed from the Greek, and the other half are totally different. It's the same, really, with words in the English language. About half our words are based on Greek words, including many of the ones you use at school. There's school itself. That comes from the Greek, as does maths, history, arithmetic, geography, drama. Oh, yes, and there's another one that comes from the Greek, music.
Right, Carmides. Let's see what progress you've made. Carmides, the lyre was a gift to mankind from the gods. In your hands, it's an instrument of punishment. Practice, boy, practice, practice, practice.
492, sir? Have I made another mistake? You want me to do it again?
Sometimes I think I'm in the wrong job. Sometimes I know I am. Right, boys, stop what you're doing and gather round. Time to improve your minds with a story. Right, now, you remember how Jason and the Argonauts built the Argo and set off to find the Golden Fleece?
Yes.
Well, today you'll find out what happened. It is a tale of evil kings, magic spells, and fearful monsters.
And does he find the Golden Fleece?
Well, if you listen, you'll find out, won't you? Everyone paying attention? Good. Right. Now, the journey to Colchis was to take many months. And at one point, they put in at an island to take on more stores. Now, the king of the island was a blind man called Phineas. Phineas led a wretched life, for not only was he blind, but he was persecuted by the Harpies. The Harpies were evil-smelling creatures, ugly, horrible, and so greedy that whenever food was put on the table for Phineas, they swooped down and seized it for themselves. Poor Phineas had not had a proper meal in years. The Argonauts were shocked at his plight, and they promised to chase the Harpies away. A banquet was set out for the king, and they laid an ambush. Sure enough, in a matter of minutes, the Harpies had arrived, and they swooped down to steal the food. But this time they were in for a nasty surprise. They were met by a hail of arrows from the Argonauts. The Harpies were so frightened that they never returned again. Phineas thanked Jason from the bottom of his heart. To repay the Argonauts for their services, he told them the secret of the clashing rocks. To reach Colchis, you will have to sail between two giant rocks. Every now and then, they clash together and crush whatever is passing through. So when you arrive at these rocks, you must release a white pigeon. If it flies safely through, that is a sign that the gods will protect you. But if the pigeon is crushed by the rocks, you too are doomed. The Argonauts thanked the old man and sailed away. On they voyaged until one morning they heard a rumbling like distant thunder. Yes, it was the clashing rocks, and as they drew closer they saw them smash thunderously together. "We must turn back," said the Argonauts. "It is impossible." "No," said Jason. "Trust Phineus, release the pigeon." The Argonauts watched with bated breath as the bird flew towards the narrow gap. Hungrily the rocks began to close like the jaws of a wild beast, and the bird was swallowed up, or so it seemed. But when the rocks opened up again, a great shout went up, for they saw that the pigeon had come safely through. "Row," said Jason. "Row, men, row as you have never rowed before." And next minute, the Argo too had shot safely through the gap, a fraction of a second before the rocks clashed together a second time. After many more adventures, the Argonauts arrived at Colchis, and there they were met by King Aeetes. "We have come to take back the Golden Fleece," said Jason. "There is a curse on the land of Iolcos which will never be lifted till the fleece is returned to us." Aeetes trembled with anger, and he determined to send this bold young stranger to his doom. "You shall have the fleece, but only if you can prove yourself a better man than me. Tomorrow you must yoke the fire-breathing bulls, and then you must sow the sacred field of Ares with dragon's teeth. And then you must kill the guardian dragon. Do that, and you may have the fleece." "I accept your challenge," said Jason, and he turned away. Aeetes laughed to himself, for he knew the task was impossible. But unknown to him, his daughter Medea had fallen in love with the handsome stranger. She was a sorceress, gifted with magic powers, and that night she came to Jason with a magic ointment made from secret herbs.
"Rub it on yourself, and it will protect you from the flames of the bulls. Otherwise you will be burnt to death. And when you have sown the dragon's teeth, throw a stone into the middle of the crops that grow there. Remember, Jason, throw a stone."
The next morning, everyone gathered at the field of Ares, and as Jason approached the bulls, the crowd held their breath. It seemed that he must be scorched to death by their fiery breath, but no, the flames licked harmlessly around him. And as he spoke soothing words to them, the anger of the bulls seemed to die away, and they allowed Jason to yoke them to the plough and to drive them up and down. And now Jason strode up and down the furrows, sowing the dragon's teeth. "This is easy enough. This is child's play." But he was wrong, for after he had finished the sowing, a crop began to grow. It was a crop of fully armed soldiers. Jason gazed in astonishment, and astonishment turned to fear as the soldiers prepared to advance on him. Jason was trapped. How could he fight an army unarmed and single-handed? But then he remembered Medea's advice.
"Throw a stone, Jason. Throw a stone."
The rock landed near the rear of the armed men and struck one of the soldiers to the ground. From where he'd been standing, the soldier could not see where the stone had come from. He thought it had been thrown by one of his companions, and leaping to his feet, he struck out at the nearest man. In hitting back, the second man struck his neighbour a blow, and soon a fierce battle had begun. It was so simple. All Jason had to do was stand back and watch as his enemies slaughtered each other to the last man. Aeetes was furious, but he pretended to admire the young Greek's courage. "Well done, Jason. You are a brave man and a clever one. Tomorrow you shall have the fleece." Jason exulted. He had won. But that night, Medea came to him with bad news.
My father's word is not to be trusted. He means to kill you tomorrow, and he means to kill me too, for he knows it was I who helped you. Here is what we must do. Rouse your men and tell them to make ready to sail, but do it quietly and secretly. Meanwhile, you and I will fetch the fleece, now, by dead of night.
So while the Argonauts hurried stealthily down to their ship, Jason and Medea moved off into the woods. It was pitch dark, but Medea knew the secret tracks of the forest, and finally they arrived at a clearing. And there on a tree was the golden fleece shining through the night with its mysterious glow. And there below it was the gigantic guardian dragon. It was a fearful monster. But the magic of Medea was equal to the task. Muttering secret spells, she sprinkled special herbs in front of the dragon. The forked tongue licked them up, and next minute it was asleep.
Now, take the fleece, Jason. Take the fleece. The fleece is yours.
An hour later, as dawn began to break, the Argonauts rowed away from Colchis, taking Medea with them. Their task was done. The fleece was theirs. And now Jason could return to claim his throne. Now there's a story for you.
And did they all live happily ever after?
No, Lucian, they didn't. But that's something you can find out about for yourselves. And now, I think we'll finish off with a song. Back to your seats, boys. We'll send you off home with music in your hearts. Heroes of Greece, all right? Right. And Carmides, you can give us a note. La. All right?
Yes.
Off you go then. Heroes of old, heroes of Greece. No. Stop. That's absolutely awful. You can do better than that. Right. Heroes of old, heroes of Greece, they followed Jason to find the golden fleece. Golden their cargo, aboard the good ship Argo, praise to the heroes of Greece. Heroes of old, heroes of ancient Greece. Heroes of old, heroes of ancient Greece. Well done, boys. Right, off you go. See you in the morning.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you very much. Right, hurry up. Here you go.
Bye.
Get your bags. Bye. Bye. See you tomorrow. Off you go then.
506?
Correct.